Hello, everyone. Happy Tuesday? Happy Tuesday. We're at the end of the day today, and some familiar faces here. It's amazing to be here with Yat and Ryan. I'm excited to talk about all things IP, gaming, everything else in between. These guys can talk, and so you're in for a treat. I would love to start off kind of like shaping the situation in the space of gaming and AI today. You know, as generative AI kind of reshapes how context is created and crypto reshapes how it's owned, I think there's kind of a new internet forming on this front, right? I see you guys nodding, so that's a good sign. But before we get into all of that, Ryan and Yat, I would love to kind of get a high-level overview of kind of where you see the state of this today and what is really important to you, and then we could go into the dynamics on this front.
All right, sure, I'll start. So Yat, chairman of Animoca Brands, and I guess one of the things that I would say we see today is actually when it comes to on-chain traffic, we see most of the activity happening actually in gaming. So a lot of people are coming in. When it comes to token performance, not so much. We can go into that a little bit later, perhaps. But I would say the biggest gap that we see with regards to bringing people on-chain and bringing them onto Web3 is the lack of financial literacy. So financial literacy is a problem because people don't know why they're going into blockchain and they understand the reason that everything in blockchain is around tokenizing, essentially creating a capital asset. And when you have a capital asset, then there's money involved. And the problem is that when there's money involved and you don't know what to do with it, then you kind of get lost. And for a lot of people, and especially in some parts of the world, when you're kind of critical to money, when you're a little bit more on the socialist leaning side, you tend to have this attitude towards money is bad. And I think that's the problem, where the people who are engaged in, let's call it gaming or entertainment activities, not all of them are thinking of capitalism in a positive lens. And so those are harder to convert. And so naturally, if you're in blockchain and in Web3, you're pro-capitalist, or you convert it into one when you're actually in crypto. But if you're not, I think that's the hardest mind shift, rather than saying it's a technology issue, it's an adoption issue. It's really your attitude towards money. I think that is the biggest challenge.
Do you agree, Ryan?
Thank you. Yeah, this is Ryan. Yeah, thank you for having me. And with Jacquelyn and Yat. Yeah, our company is actually Pinkfong Company, and we create content for baby and age 1 to 5, 1 to 6. So we are not the company who create wonderful tech. We are more than company based on some big trend and smartphone devices and YouTube channel, and over there something like Pinkfong YouTube channel. So what always remind me is actually be a lot to big change I can control. Because when we started a company 15 years ago, my thinking is about how do I create more efficient or speedy mobile app. That was my vision. But at that time, we need some lots of wonderful, some programmer, some technician. But in nowadays, many things have changed just in 15 years. So I think every change is quite fast. And maybe 6 months ago, it's just past. So in nowadays, how do we something survive in the terms of some AI and tokenize and maybe some blockchain? So as a content creator, I would like to know more about that field, that world. Yeah, it's like something mainstream and crypto. So I think the most important thing is that actually some wonderful UI and UX. Because the fandom of some K-pop or maybe the Pinkfong, they are not good at creating even some wallet of some crypto. So who could create some very accessible way to meet, adopt crypto or AI? Definitely be the champion of the new era.
I think it's also worth noting that we were talking about this backstage, but Ryan created the Baby Shark song. If you guys are all familiar with, Baby Shark, I'm not going to start singing it, but I have nephews and nieces, and they obviously love that song, and I would love to kind of get both of your perspectives on like how you see the consumer adoption and the IP of brands being elevated in ways through Web3 that really can't be in the existing Web2 structures. Because obviously you've built brands on the Web2 side of things, So why tap into Web3? What's missing?
Yeah, I want to tell first.
Mike's for you.
Yeah. When we started Pinkfong Company, we actually produced some kid content, animated music video like the Baby Shark. We create content, and we used to find some channel to distribute our content. But at that time, we were really small startup. Nobody want our content. At that time, they're quite familiar with some long form content, maybe 10, 15 minute, 30 minute animation for kids. So our content was only 2 minutes long. So we have no way but to find our own channel. So that's the reason we create our own mobile app. So all of our content at that time is distributed by our own channel, our own mobile app. It happened 2012, 2014. After 2014, we got some, popularity to the kids and parents in South Korea. So IPTV in South Korea would like to adopt our content. So that's really something, kind of some big change. Because before that, kids only watching our content through the very small screen of the smartphone, their mom and dad. But it moved to the living room, the big TV, so the mom could choose the file of what they like, and even it's very powerful to every family member could enjoy, could know what their kids really like. So after that, we moved to YouTube channel. YouTube is quite surprisingly important in our company history. Before that, the people should download our content for free. After that, they enjoy the 2 or 3 sample video for free. Then they just click the in-app purchase button. So that means only 5%, less than 5% to our real consumer. So at that time, we actually hit the BP. So our company is not so good, not bad, but YouTube is quite a threat because YouTube is for free. In that case, if we upload our whole content on YouTube, then how about our existing consumer? They gonna buy it again, or they gonna move to YouTube? If they don't download or don't pay anything on our mobile app, they move to YouTube, then how about the revenue? So at that time, I have no conviction over something, information on the YouTube, so we do some pilot tests. After that, we upload our content, little bit by little bit. Then we found that, wow, YouTube is a whole another channel. We actually discovered new consumer because the people in developing countries, they are quite hesitate to download our new mobile app. But in terms of YouTube, they already download the app. They could access the content for free. That means based on viewership, the advertisement is in front of that or middle or end of that the money comes from us. They are the people not pay the money, but advertiser, the other party pay the money, and then money comes to us. That means non-user, non-consumer became a consumer to pay the money indirectly. And so maybe in nowadays, we call it maybe Web3. It's something a little bit different to YouTube, but optimistic. I think it also makes some new opportunity to expand our new source of revenue. That's some thinking, and we would like to make some pilot tests. That's gonna be something, how to working with big tech guys or maybe platform.
I think Pinkfong, your company, is a perfect illustration why you need to tokenize. And the reason why is, I think you have 16 billion views on YouTube, right? So one way to think of it is, wow, you're so famous on YouTube and you created all this traffic and, you're number one. But the other way to think of it is, wait, actually, you're really valuable to YouTube. Actually, you helped make YouTube's kids channel. Because of your Baby Shark video, all the children came to watch Baby Shark, and then everyone else around the network were like, oh, okay, now I have kids watching Baby Shark. What other kids program can I watch? Who benefits? A little bit the creators, but the platform benefits most of it. So in a way, even though it's your content, actually without distribution, that content is not really worth as much to you as it is to them. And so the value distribution that we have in the Web2 world is completely lopsided. Because even though you might get a share in advertising revenue, the value of the network and the network effects that come from the data is derivative. So it's not direct. And I think this is most people, creators included, but users as well, when they share photos on Instagram, they don't understand that the data is being used to create more value. And that value is the reason why they are worth literally trillions of dollars and you cannot make money. So if you look at the market cap of Spotify in the billions, no musician can make money on Spotify as a musician. They have to do all these other things to make music. So, and now the trick is, oh, it's okay, music, me being a musician making music, or me making content on YouTube, is distribution for advertising. It's a great trick. I think it's a wonderful trick that the platforms have given to creators to say, the labor of, the fruits of your labor is just commercial advertising, and then you make money in different ways, and while that's part of it, if a company is worth trillions, is even 10% of that $1 trillion market cap of value going to the creators, which in the case of Google would be around, I think about $210 billion. In the case of Apple would be $300 billion. We're just talking about 10%, right? That's $500 billion of value that is not going to creators that ought to have gone there, just as an example, right? And so tokenization is a way in which you can basically gain control of that. And what the internet has done, it has helped spread information quickly. So the videos of Baby Shark became viral, and information was created really, really quickly. But when it comes to value and value creation, it accelerates at the speed of the internet as well. And so when you launch a token, you can create a market, and from that you can then identify what that value could be worth in a more open way, and you have a direct relationship with each customer because you know where the assets are in their wallet, whether it's an NFT and so on. We're not quite there understanding what the best mechanisms are, and still trying to figure that out. However, that framing of you could own your customer, and you also know who they are. Like, for instance, you can tell of your billions of people or millions of people who view your video, who is your true fan. You can't actually tell, right? Whereas in crypto, you would be able to tell who has most of your tokens, or who is the one that holds their assets, so you can determine at least that level.
Yeah, it's a really wonderful, good perspective. Yeah, it reminds me the old way, the book publisher actually publishing a book, but they don't have any information who bought my book or who read my book. Yeah, only bookstore knows little by little. So all the data is quite fragmented. But because of tokenization, the Web3, the data ownership is true. Maybe could be some part of data co-ownership and co-control is on the creator side. So that means we have data, and that means each another some huge potential exponentially to increase the value of the company. But it's very wonderful some financial way. But in my thinking, many of my friends are quite worrying about the future of their kids, next generation. Many of them are actually digital native, so they would like to make something using iPhone, iPad, and something like that. But what if the IP company could provide their IP like a Lego block? In that case, they could make their own version of game, their own meme, something like that. In that case, it will increase their creativity. Creativity also something the basic things of the people. So it's not only maybe make them some kind of education, but also could be some wonderful, preparation for the future.
So when you think about the biggest thing that really exploded in YouTube was really sort of mashup culture. So people taking other people's videos. And I remember Hollywood used to fight against that. They're like, oh, you can't take my trailer, you can't take my content. Right? And then YouTube came with a compromise around content ID, because they didn't want to close those videos to have a way of sharing that video. So you're okay that someone mashes up your content because the revenue is given back to the original owner of that IP. But there are limitations as to how far you can take it. It's really only in a limited format. But actually with tokenization and blockchain, what you can also do is delegate rights management. So you can see this, for instance, with NFTs, what people have done. If you buy a Bored Ape, you own basically the intellectual property of that particular Bored Ape. And now we have people making Bored Ape water and Bored Ape t-shirts and Bored Ape whiskey and all that kind of stuff without actually having to go back and talk to the actual sort of, IP owner, so to speak, because the IP belongs to them. And as a result, you've created an army of IP licensing agents because they have a motivation to do so rather than hiring people to do so, right? And I think the new form of IP companies are the ones who give ownership to the owners, and they become the agents and they become the distributors for the type of services that they want to sell. And which is much, not just decentralized, but also is more powerful, because now you can have thousands of agents represent you rather than you hire those thousands of people.
Yeah, you've been a pretty prominent voice in the space in the front of Web3 gaming as well as IP, digital property rights. We've talked about it over the years, and I've seen you fund and back and like kind of be a voice for those specific categories. And I'm curious if today you feel like the narrative is shifting where we do have these like Web2 IP brands, content creators, etc., gaming companies that are now coming in. Do you feel that the time is now, or it's still early, the educational component is still a factor, and unfortunately some companies or musicians or whoever it may be has to go through the ringer, so to speak, and experience the loss of kind of owning their audience in order to then see the benefits of Web3, or how do you kind of look at it?
So first, it is true that many in the gaming, but also outside of area, are all looking at tokenizing, and a lot of it has to do with the new administration in the US. Because before, even if they were flirting with the idea, the previous government in the US basically was literally basically just playing whack-a-mole on every project, sending them Wells notices. So nobody wanted to do that. And now everyone is thinking, okay, how do I tokenize? And I think particularly clarity is going to be a big factor in this, because once that act passes in the US, then the big companies are all in the US going to say, okay, now I can think about a token. Because just think about what happened after Genius. Now that there is a framing for stablecoin, not just banks, but Amazon, Walmart, Google, all those guys are saying, okay, let's do a stablecoin, because now you have a law, right? And in our industry, people in crypto, we're kind of used to skating on the edge because that was basically our entire existence. So therefore, we're very comfortable with making assumptions about where it's going to go as opposed to certainty. But most companies in the world can't operate this way, right? They can't operate on the fact that, if there's new administration, that might change. So it has to go into law first. But that's going to create sort of a big tidal wave of companies that are all going to tokenize, right? And our view is that there's going to be many, many more tokens coming from these institutions. Now, that's different for creators, right? For the large institutions, they're going to launch a token, they're going to have their community, they have a base already, and they're going to have a foundation in which they could launch. But for the creators, there is this element of cutting your losses, as it were, right? And not everyone can do a Taylor Swift to say, I'm not going to go on Spotify, I'll just do my own thing, because they have that scale. But it's all about the money. So if Spotify doesn't pay you enough and you can still retain your audience to a certain degree, right, then maybe the solution is that you basically can launch a token, you launch your community, bring them on board over time, and I don't think it's an either or. So in the gaming world, Steam has banned NFTs and blockchain. They don't want that. But Spotify hasn't done that, and I don't think they can. So you can still marry both, right? And then as you build your audience over time into your own platform, eventually, once you know who your 1,000 true fans are, sort of in classic Kevin Kelly style, then you have the ability to make that switch because it's no longer too high of a cost, right? So I think creators can do it gradually over time.
I also want to talk about kind of like the iconic IP brands, both in crypto and outside of it. We got Pinkfong, Pudgy Penguins, they had Azuki up there before. How do you kind of see that shaping the way that IP is interpreted to, sure, crypto's future, but then also like mainstream adoption? Because like my grandma actually sends me like gifts of Pudgy Penguins, and she has no idea what that means in the crypto sense, but like it's kind of crazy. She's just a cute penguin, right? So like how do you guys think about that from the IP perspective, and then how it really kind of or accelerates the adoption of Web3, whether intentionally or not?
In terms of me, I think Web2 content and Web3 content, it reminds me of pop versus K-pop. Yeah, because Baby Shark is more similar to the normal pop song, because one company creates a wonderful song and it distributes the content and you just enjoying it. But sadly, our fan is 1 to 5 years old. They don't know what it's like, what is this like. So 50% of our YouTube channel is a thumbs up, for 50% thumbs down. So communication is nearly impossible. It's like something Web 1, Web 2. But in terms of Web 3, they are not only fan, but also got some benefit, the reward from the using, adoption, or maybe they're going to be some evangelist of that content. It's like K-pop. So the BTS, there's something ARMY, the New Jeans and Bernie, and the users of Pudgy Penguin or Azuki, they are like a partner. They would like to build the community, build the ecosystem. So I think that's going to be the future of the whole content business. So that means it could be some good effect of a tokenization. Yeah, like you have mentioned.
So the lens I take from this is it's like an ambassador service, right? So when your grandma sends sort of Pudgy Penguin sort of gifts over to people, she doesn't need to know that it's from crypto land. However, as time develops, the fact that it is from crypto land makes it an ambassador for, you know what, maybe the guys at crypto aren't all that bad, right? Maybe it's cute and interesting. And I look at this from the context also for different IP. So in the case of K-pop, right, and the entire sort of Korean sort of industry, because of K-pop or things like K-pop Demon Hunters and that kind of stuff, you have an image for Korea as a nation that improves, right, and just becomes cool. And now it's cool. Things from Korea is cool regardless of whether they even have been to Korea. And I remember back in the days in the 80s, for those of you old enough to remember, there was a big anti-Japanese sentiment because of cars and industry and whatever. And then, what won America over was Hello Kitty, anime, sushi,
yeah.
all that stuff, right? And so what is it, culture? And for instance, how many Americans really knew for a long time that Hello Kitty or even anime was Japanese? They had no idea. But I would say content bridges over and you win people over. And as a result, now the relationships are much better as a result because, hey, if I like sushi, then maybe Japan's not all that bad, right? And by the way, that's also how I think we will solve geopolitics with China and the US, because I think we can universally agree that Chinese food is great no matter where you are, right?
Okay, so what does the Americans have to get on board with from the Chinese economy to be like, China's not that bad?
Yeah, well, I mean, they love their burgers and pizza, right? So
well, yeah. We could give you guys burgers and pizza. You guys give us something else. Yeah.
What reminded me is that actually you mentioned about some Pudgy Penguin and Azuki. In terms of Web3 content, some of them is quite nerdy and not open to every people in the world.
Yeah.
But Pudgy Penguin and Azuki is quite well aesthetic. I think it's a wonderful legend. Every people who have no idea about the crypto could access to the Pudgy Penguin and Azuki because it's beautiful, it's kawaii. So I think even it's a Web 1, Web 2, Web 3, was that the kawaii thing is the most fundamental thing. Based on that, they're going to choose what channel, what kind of some business strategy I could adapt, I could take. It depends on the founder or maybe surroundings like that.
Yeah, I agree. I also think it's kind of just like, instead of like putting Web3 insert company name, you just like show the company, people like it, they naturally adopt it. It doesn't need to be like so crypto forward. Sometimes it could just be on the back end and people will like it for what it is, So I think that's kind of like a prominent component too. Ryan, I also know there is the collaboration with IP World. I'd love to hear more about that and what that entails. If you could share some details.
I'm going to share something because we are planning to working with Story and IP World. And the reason is that, they would like something using some meme. Meme is not a video, meme is not a webtoon, but meme is like some virus. It suddenly appears, it's like a mushroom. It suddenly disappears. But what if one people create a meme, it's just a so-so, it's like a mushroom, but more than 100, 10,000 people make it. It could be something like another power. And the entrance to creating content is more easier than creating some video, creating music. So I think it will maybe some democratize the creation of the content. In that case, it's going to be some very fun experience, not only the user, but also the IP holders. That's the reason we would like to working with Story and IP World. Maybe it's going to be something like, who knows, they're gonna make some YouTube of the meme, or maybe some, the TikTok of the meme. Yeah. What do you think?
TikTok open memes? I mean, so first, I generally think of memes, they're going to be around forever. Because frankly, think about our culture, everything is meme-like anyway in nature.
Yeah.
I mean, Statue of Liberty, the American flag, it's kind of, there's a meme attached to that as well, right? So there's meanings behind that. I think of memes also today as a way of us to measure attention. So one of the things that we appreciate about sort of good memes, as in not the ones that are market manipulated, because there are those as well, right? But sort of the open memes as a way for us to understand where is the attention. So I got to learn about Chill Guy because of a meme coin. And when I mentioned this about to my kids like last year, they thought, well, oh, Dad knows about Chill Guy, kind of cool, right? But I didn't do this because I was actually on TikTok. It was because of the fact that I saw a meme coin. And so these are indications of where information, and because it's financial, there is some truth to it. I don't mean to say that money is truth. I mean to say that there's something at stake, right? There's an energy that you contribute and you put real money behind it, then you know that there must be something real there, right? And that's how we measure markets as well when it comes to commodities, when it comes to stocks, right? If the price of oil is up and down, it tells you something about what's happening. Is there a war? Is there a problem? What's going on, right? If the price of electricity is up or down, again, we get information from that, right? And memes is the digital version of that, right? In fact, all tokens, right? And so I think we can measure that better. And because it's traded 24/7, you actually have a much more real read of the market. Mm-hmm. And just like attention in sort of Web 2, you have something that's really popular on X or on Instagram, you get millions of followers or you get millions of likes and everything on it. It might only last for a day. And just like a meme, it could be a meme for one day, it could be a meme for 1 week, it could be for 5 years, right? Here you have just a way of enumerating the value, but it's still the same thing.
Did you buy Chill Guy?
I bought some just to prove my point, but not a lot. It was just for fun.
Did you hold it? Are you up?
The problem about me is when I buy tokens, I generally hold them because I couldn't be bothered to deal with the trade.
I'm a long-term holder too.
Yeah, I'm a hodler generally.
Yeah. I'm loyal, yeah. But how do you kind of see the convergence or the bridge between these meme coins, like your kids bring it up to you and right, you see these things out in the wild and then suddenly there's a crypto aspect to it. Do you think there is always going to be kind of like a flow there? And if not, should there be a connecting point between the two?
So I think the aspect of changing and modifying and making it adaptable and composing is something we should be free to do. So, whether it's baseball cards as an example, take Pokemon cards. For sure, when the Pokemon Company created Pokemon cards, they did not think this would be an asset as valuable as it is.
Well, a lot of them are traded on polygons like Courtyard, but
exactly.
Sandeep's
I know
not here
Sandeep's
to talk
not
about
here
it.
to talk about it. Exactly. But as an example, right? Pokemon cards are valuable today, but why? Because someone decided that they wanted to trade them, and did they need permission? No, it was their property. They could sell it to someone else. A market developed. And what's interesting is, for sure, the Pokemon Company now is, this is what I find so fascinating, is because of the collector aspect, the Pokemon Company can no longer indiscriminately launch assets either because it's part of their business thinking, but it's not part of their business plan originally. So the markets push them in a different way. And I think of tokens exactly the same way. Now, Chill Guy was a bit weirder because the Chill Guy founder hated tokens. So he was railing against it, right? When in fact, he could have made a great commercial opportunity out of it. But that's a different topic, right? And I think that's just ideology. I mean, just foolishness, right? But take that aside. When you have a market that's coming, it can push back on the creator as to how they should react. No different than people buying a product, right? So if people are buying a shirt or not buying a shirt or buying a drink or not buying a drink, you have to respond to that, whether the market is direct or not, right? So I think, will there be token launches for anything that are out there when there's a community? Absolutely. I don't think you can stop it because the only way to stop it is to say we prohibit that, which means you're restricting the growth of the network and the network effect, which is ultimately bad. It's kind of like in the old days when Hollywood used to say, you can't post our content online. You can't share my content. You can't adapt it. And guess what? If you don't get discovered. So now everyone's like, go do whatever you want with it because we want as much following and distribution as possible.
What about AI kind of disrupting the IP relationship out there? I guess the value of brands that they hold with IP, I don't think all AI LLMs really respect that. And if they don't, maybe they'll get sued. Or maybe like long-term generative AI is kind of like the future where we really can't control what happens with the content we put out there. I see you guys making faces, so tell me. You could disagree.
Yeah, in terms of Gen AI, I think there's some good point, or maybe some concern point. Because Gen AI is quite different to another tech revolution. Because think about the YouTube, think of Netflix. It's a more for the distribution of the content, but AI is quite applied to the creation side. So that means we could build content more cheaper, or more faster, or more larger volume. So it's very good in terms of operational engineering. But what if the whole output consequences are quite same? Because AI is about the probability. The whole has the same future, same end. In that case, everything looks like no more diverse, very homogeneous. In that case, it's going to be some threat of the content business.
So in legal construct, they have this thing called passing off, right? And what they say is that if you have in famous examples of, in the past, a lot of Chinese companies who might take, like some of the logos look a bit like Toyota, or some logos look a bit like this, right? And then they get sued because there's a similarity around that, right? And to me, this is no different if an LLM rips off something and says, I'm faking this, or but I say it's original. What blockchain does, if you tokenize the asset, is it can prove whether the AI took that data rather than just have inspiration. It actually really took direct influence from it. And frankly, I don't think people mind paying a fee for IP that was borrowed or used, kind of like what Content ID does for YouTube, as long as there's a way of tracking it. And I think blockchain does that very nicely. And I think the problem we have in the past, and really today with legal framing or trademarks, is that it costs a lot to do so, right? But if you can basically do this on blockchain, then you can prove that this is your content, and then you can tap into it, and then legally you have the ability to just adaptively use that. So I think the future of IP is essentially to tokenize it. That's the way we can scale protection, as opposed to the sort of classic digital protection frameworks that frankly are not working so well.
Okay, so we've talked about AI, we've talked about IP, we've talked about tokenization, Web3 gaming. What do you think the future of the consumer crypto stack will look like, let's say in 2026? We're almost done with 2025 now. So what will the future of it look like within the next year? And how do you see both of your companies kind of shaping that?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I think of the movie Avengers. Avengers is quite difficult to create because the right of Spider-Man is on Sony, not Disney. Disney bought Marvel, but the right of Spider-Man already sold to Sony. So they should have a negotiation with Sony. But what if tokenization happened at that time? So in that case, they're gonna make Avengers more fast using Spider-Man in Avengers. Or maybe they're gonna collaboration with some X-Men. X-Men is bought on the Fox. So in that case, if all the heavy content is quite tokenized, the even wonderful curation is held by the grassroots thing. Based on that, the big company could adopt it. Yeah.
So in 26, I think we'll have over 1 billion people who own crypto in one form or fashion. We have about 500 million right now.
Okay,
right?
I was going to ask where we are.
Yeah. But when it comes to on-chain, I think we're going to go past 100 plus million. And to me, over 100 plus million active on-chain users. Okay, that's not the same as saying, I have a wallet. Okay, because wallet...
One-time people, right?
Exactly,
yeah.
people who are actually using it and doing stuff on it, right? That's going to move on-chain economies because you need sufficient scale. And we're getting to that point, right? If you look at least on the DEXs and the perps, like Hyperliquid and those guys, you can see there's that traffic moving from centralized exchanges into basically on-chain economies more and more, and it's also getting cheaper and better and more efficient.
Right.
I think that's kind of where we hit a certain kind of escape velocity. It's kind of like when the internet started hitting escape velocity around 2003, 2004. I think we're going to start hitting this around 26, 27. Yeah. And the consumer sort of side is going to be driving that. in terms of people, whether it's Pudgy Penguins or Telegram, with Ton, or basically people building applications. I don't think it's going to be one thing, but rather I think it's going to be, we have to be mindful of the fact that billions and billions of dollars are being invested in Web3 on-chain applications every year, right? And so, you can be skeptical all you like, but when money goes into a system constantly because there's a return, then eventually an output will happen that will just basically sort of rise, and we think that moment will happen by next year or the year after. So we're bullish, but of course we should be, right?
Yeah. Let's see the 2026.
100%. Amazing. Well, yeah, Ryan, thank you so much for taking the time to talk today, and thank you to everyone for listening in.
Thank you.
Thank you.